Welcome everyone to the annual Engineers Week Kickoff and Awards presentation presented by the Engineers Club of Memphis and the Memphis Joint Engineering Council, MJEC. My name is Ryan Groves, President of the Engineers Club of Memphis. Engineers Week is a time to celebrate how engineers make a difference in our world and recognize their critical work. As you can see on this slide, MJEC is made up of several professional engineering societies, colleges, and universities in the greater Memphis area. Each of these take this opportunity to recognize a featured engineer or student, which we will present shortly. This year's week theme for Engineers Week is reimagining the possible. Engineers create new possibilities all the time, from green buildings to fuel-efficient cars to life-saving vaccines. Engineers work together to develop new technologies, products, and opportunities to change how we live. Let's inspire the next generation by celebrating all the ways engineers turn dreams into reality by reimagining what seems impossible to become the possible. There are several local activities going on during Engineers Week that we'll cover at the end of this presentation. With that, I would like to introduce Mr. Bob Sweeney to read proclamations recognizing Engineers Week in Memphis. Bob?
All right, we have a proclamation from both of the mayors, Jim Strickland and Lee Harris. It is a joint proclamation. Whereas Memphis and Shelby County are competing in a global marketplace which creates increasingly advanced problems that demand acute engineering and technological skills combined with creative thinking. And whereas engineers wield their scientific and technical knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs. And whereas engineers face the major technological challenges of our times, from rebuilding our towns devastated by natural disasters, well, that's appropriate, to designing the complex electronic systems that will speed our country along through the 21st century. Whereas engineers, by virtue of their accomplishments, encourage our young math and science students to realize the practical power of their knowledge. And whereas we looked more than ever to engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of the future. Now, therefore, we, Jim Strickland, Mayor of the City of Memphis, and Lee Harris, Mayor of the County of Shelby, do hereby proclaim this week of February 20th to 26th, 2022, Engineers Week in Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee. And thus we call upon all citizens to join the members of the engineering profession and its professional societies in the annual observance of this week to become more aware that each day of our lives is influenced by the work of engineers. It is signed by Jim Strickland and Lee Harris.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bob. All right, now on to our awards presentation. I'd like to introduce Mrs. Carol Jones, PE, our MJEC chairman for this year.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. It is my honor and privilege to announce the recipients of the Featured Engineer Awards, Featured Student Awards, and the Award of Excellence from the Memphis Area Joint Engineers Council. MJEC is an umbrella organization for 17 engineering societies and educational institutions in the Memphis area. MJEC includes all members of these local chapters, sections, colleges, and universities, and is governed by a board of directors, which is comprised of 2 representatives from each participating organization. The following featured engineers have been chosen by their respective organizations in recognition of their contributions to that organization and the engineering community. The American Society of Civil Engineers has selected Marvin Brown, PE, for his exemplary leadership and dedicated service to the ASCE West Tennessee branch. The Godowski School of Engineering at Christian Brothers University has selected Dr. Andrew Asadoli for PE for his excellence in teaching, outstanding leadership, and contributions to the university and community. The Engineers Club of Memphis has selected Mark Baskin, PE, for his service to the club as the 2021 president and to his contributions to the engineering profession and to the health, safety, and welfare of the people. The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers has selected Christine Fahey for her exemplary leadership and service as the IEEE Memphis Section Blockchain Group Chair. The Illuminating Engineering Society has selected Wallace Wimbush, PE, for her distinguished service, exceptional commitment, and overall contributions to the society as Section Secretary. The Institute of Industrial and System Engineers has selected Tyler Whitehead for his service as president of the Memphis IISE chapter and continuous support of the chapter. The Memphis Area Joint Engineers Council has selected Ryan Groves, PE, for very effectively serving as chair of MJEC and enhancing the organization and the engineering student contest with innovative ideas. The National Society of Black Engineers has selected Kayla D. Muhammad for her contributions as a member of their executive board. Her positive attitude, attention to details, and eagerness to support the chapter continues to be the invaluable characteristics that support the mission of the organization. The Society of American Military Engineers has selected Tommy Dunlap, PE, for his dedicated service, outstanding commitment, and contributions to the Memphis Post as the 2021 Vice President. The Society of Women Engineers has selected Ruxie Marinescu, PhD, for her exemplary service and devotion to SWE Memphis through leadership as president, vice president, and treasurer, and inspiring future leaders in engineering. Southwest Tennessee Community College has selected Stuart White for his tireless work in support of the Engineering Technologies Department and his dedicated service to the college. The Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers has selected Drake Danley, PE, for his exemplary leadership and dedicated service to the Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers. Now it's time to recognize the featured students. As you notice, CBU, Southwest Tennessee Community College, and the University of Memphis are members of MJEC. Most years, they each select a featured engineer for recognition. Although we did not receive one from U of M this year for this year's recognition, I am pleased to present the featured students from our other two educational institutions. The Graduate School of Engineering at Christian Brothers University has selected Amanda Munoz for her academic excellence, student leadership, and service to the university and community. Southwest Tennessee Community College has selected Zane Rodriguez for his outstanding work in architectural design technology. Congratulations to each of you for your recognitions. Your certificates will be sent to you in the very near future. Now it's time to present the Memphis Area Joint Engineers Council Award of Excellence. The recipient of the Award of Excellence is selected on 5 categories based on education, professional accomplishments and recognition, contributions to the profession, contributions to associations and societies, and humanitarian and civic activities. With these broad criteria and a membership that covers a wide range of disciplines, it's a challenging task to determine the one person who will receive the award. MJEC makes every effort to select recipients who exhibit the values of service and leadership. While our organizations encourage service and leadership, the implementation is solely lies within the individual through his or her work and dedication. With this award, we honor an engineer who demonstrates excellence in service to the profession and the community. This year's Award of Excellence recipient is a graduate of the Christian Brothers University in the field of civil engineering and is a licensed professional engineer in the state of Tennessee and a certified grade 3 water treatment plant operator. This person has held numerous leadership positions in the Memphis chapter of the Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers and as a state director. The recipient has worked for both private sector engineering companies, including Dickinson and Bennett, Allen and Hochul, and SR Consulting, as well as the local governments, including the city of Memphis and the city of Bartlett. This person has been instrumental in the analysis and design of stormwater distribution systems and utility systems. The recipient has served as a volunteer to support many engineering and community activities, including math counts, the first Lego League, engineering panel discussions, and even as a hockey game referee. The recipient has received awards from the Memphis chapter of TSPE and has been very, very prominent in representing the chapter at Engineers Day on the Hill. Please join me in congratulating the recipient of the 2022 MJEC Award of Excellence, Tim Herndon, PE. Tim, would you like to say a few words in honor of your recognition today? You can unmute yourself, Tim, if you would like to say a few words.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm exceedingly honored by my colleagues for this nomination. I think there are plenty of others that deserve this more than me, but receiving this recognition from my colleagues is an incredible honor. Thank you ever so much.
Congratulations, Tim. I'm so glad we were able to get you on the meeting today.
It took a little bit and it took some coercion and such, but yeah, I'm here. So
well
yes,
deserved,
thank y'all
sir.
ever so much.
Congratulations, Bob. Congrats, Dad.
Congratulations, Tim. And now I turn it back over to you, Ryan, for the rest of the program.
All right, so our special keynote speaker needs no introduction, but I will give one anyways. Mr. Jerry Collins was born and raised in Memphis. He has a BS and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Memphis. Jerry and his wife, Diane, have 2 grown sons and 3 granddaughters, all of whom live in the Memphis area and spend a lot of time with their grandparents. Jerry was a public service servant for 40 years before his retirement. He was formerly Director of Public Works for the City of Memphis from 2000 to 2007 and later served as President and CEO of MLGW for 10 years. He serves on the University of Memphis Engineering Advisory Council and is an adjunct professor in the engineering department at CBU. In addition, he serves on many other boards and committees, including the Engineers Club of Memphis. He is the president-elect for our club. So without further ado, Mr. Jerry Collins. Jerry, I'm going to stop share and turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. There we go. Okay. I am Jerry Collins, and I'm glad to be here this evening and to be on the same agenda as Tim Herndon, which is a tall act to follow.
Nice pun, Mr. Collins.
So as we go through life, I hope we would learn life's lessons, or at least some of life's lessons. And as you get older, you become a little bit philosophical. And from time to time, I come across a phrase that summarizes one of the lessons that I've learned in life. And I've probably got 25 or 30 of these phrases. I didn't think much about them until I got to Memphis Light, Gas, and Water back in 2007. And my good friend, Philip Lim, who many of you know, started writing down these phrases that I would throw out occasionally. And he would call them Jerryisms. So I'm going to share a couple of 2 or 3 Jerryisms with you during this presentation. And the first one is, the best jobs are those where you learn the most. I've always believed that. I've always loved learning. And I feel like that as long as you continue to learn, you stay young. And when you stop learning, that's when you become old, no matter what your age is. And I've had great fortune in my career to be involved with a lot of different departments in local government. As a matter of fact, during the summer and the fall of 2007, when I was transitioning from Public Works to Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, I was actually, for a 6-month period, served as both Public Works Director and the Chief Utility Officer of MLGW at the same time. And so during that 6-month period, I was responsible for both wastewater collection and treatment, while at the same time, potable water treatment and distribution. I was responsible for natural gas distribution and solid waste collection. I was responsible for electric transmission and power distribution, and at the same time, street maintenance, along with flood control, drain maintenance, stormwater pollution, etc. So I've had the opportunity to observe a lot of different aspects of infrastructure, and that's really the topic of our discussion today. And so what gives infrastructure a bad name? Dangerous bridges, inadequately maintained pavement. We had a great presentation last week at the Engineers Club about pavement management. Supply chain bottlenecks give infrastructure a bad name. Slow, expensive transportation, lead water pipes, and the list just goes on and on. Reasons commonly given for upgrading or replacing infrastructure is because the infrastructure is old, worn out, not maintained properly, improperly designed or constructed, or maybe you just need a higher level of service. So I'm going to give you some examples. The first one is the Gayoso pump station. The Gayoso pump station is located just north of downtown, and its function is to pump rainwater out of downtown Memphis when the Mississippi River is above 28 feet on the gauge. This pump station was built in 1916, so it's now 106 years old, and it includes 4 72-inch centrifugal stormwater pumps. These pumps are pretty amazing. The rotors are 10 foot in diameter. They turn at a very slow RPM, and the total capacity of these 4 pumps is 540,000 gallons a minute, or 777 million gallons a day. I can visualize a flow that's expressed in million gallons a day much better than I can visualize a flow in GPM. The Gayoso pump station is old, but it's not worn out. About 20 years ago, we did replace the electrical switchgear at the station because it looked like something out of a Frankenstein movie. and was not very dependable. In recent years, the motors were rewound, and the well-maintained pumps are old, but they're not worn out. In fact, in recent years, the pump manufacturer actually offered to buy the pumps back from the city. So these pumps are 106 years old. Do they need to be replaced? No. We have 4 large structures in Memphis that serve the same purpose, and one of those has received recent attention for being an infrastructure problem. Was it A, the structure built in 1892, that's 130 years old? The structure built in 1917, that's 105 years old? C, the structure built in 1949, that's 73 years old? Or was it D, the structure that was built in 1973, that is 49 years old? Well, it was not A, which is the Frisco Bridge. That's the one in the center of this picture. Built in 1892, 1,990 feet long, with an original construction price of $3 million. It's still used today. And it was not the Harahan Bridge that recently attracted attention, built in 1917, 4,973 feet long, that cost $4 million. And the Memphis, Arkansas Bridge has not received a lot of attention as being an infrastructure problem. It was built in 1949, 5,222 feet long, cost $13.6 million. But it was the Hernando de Soto Bridge that was built in 1973, is 4 miles long and cost $57 million. When this bridge was originally built, the cost estimate was $12 million. But when they finished building the bridge in 1973, the total cost was $57 million. And construction took 2 years longer than was planned. That's not a very good situation. As an engineer, you obviously never want to have a project that comes in over the estimate, much less 5 times the original estimate. And you never want a construction project to last longer than what is necessary. And you don't want it to go beyond your original construction period that was planned. Of course, this bridge got a lot of attention this last year because of the crack that was repaired. And as a side note, one of the structural engineers that was involved with this repair project said that he's been underneath many bridges for inspection purposes, and they're typically filthy, characterized by bird droppings, bird nest, but not the Hernando de Soto Bridge. He said the underneath side of this bridge with its structural members is clean. There's no bird droppings. There's no bird nest. Why is that? Because this bridge moves so much, especially when a heavy load, a heavy truck is traveling over the bridge. It moves a lot more than you might think. And no self-respecting bird is going to stay perched on the underside of this bridge very long. In fact, the structural engineer said that as he crawled on his hands and knees on a catwalk below the bridge deck, that it was like riding a surfboard on the ocean. So the judaism that applies to the Hernando de Soto Bridge as it was originally constructed is under promise, overachieve. What you never want to do is underachieve and overpromise. Next example is I-65 between Birmingham and Montgomery, Alabama. It's 90 miles between these two cities. And in the summer months, when there's a lot of traffic going to and from the beaches on the Gulf Coast, this stretch of highway can get very busy. Now the picture here shows a 3-lane highway. And it actually is 3 lanes in Montgomery, and it's 3 lanes in Birmingham. But between the 2 cities, it's 2 lanes each way. And even when there's no construction and no wrecks in the summertime, the traffic is stop and go, and it can take a long time to travel that 90-mile distance. Well, what's the problem? Well, obviously there's too much traffic for this section of highway. But the bigger problem is funding. They need the money to widen this section of interstate so that it can adequately handle the traffic. Example number 4, stormwater flooding, city of Memphis. 20 years ago, what is called the normal neighborhood, which is bounded by Southern Avenue on the north, Park Avenue on the south, Highland on the west, and Goodlet on the east, right next to Audubon Park. 20 years ago, about once a year, this neighborhood was subject to a lot of flooding. I mean, water getting into homes, dozens of homes along Black Bayou and along the tributary to Black Bayou that comes from Audubon Park. The fix would be millions of dollars. At that point in time, I was director of public works for the city of Memphis, and I did not have the funds to fix this problem. The consequences are a substandard way of living for the people that live here that have to put up with this flooding on a frequent basis, property values that decline because of the flooding. A similar situation at the same time existed on Perkins Extended, south of Walnut Grove down to the commercial area. There was extensive flooding in this residential area. And in fact, many of the residents had sandbags as a routine practice piled up at their front door, just in case it would rain when they weren't at home, so that the water wouldn't get in their house. At that point in time, my budget for capital improvements for drainage was $500,000 a year. You can't do very much with $500,000, especially to fix problems that cost millions and millions of dollars. When I would go to ask for funds to fix these problems, the city did not have very much money in their capital improvements budget. And I was in competition with every other division of the city. And the 2 divisions that are the toughest competition is the fire department and the police department, because all they have to do is say 2 words: public safety. And when they say the words public safety, in order to get police cars or fire trucks, rather than me fixing the flood problem, they would always win. The city didn't want to raise property taxes. And so the only alternative was to establish the stormwater fee, which took us about 1.5 years to implement. And for the first time gave us a dedicated source of funds where we could actually eliminate flooding issues in the city of Memphis. This picture is a picture of Black Bayou, and the bridge that you see is a pedestrian bridge. We replaced a vehicular bridge, actually 2 of them, that crossed Black Bayou, and the structural elements of those vehicular bridges extended halfway down the concrete wall and acted like a dam when the Black Bayou was full of water. So much so that the water would back up and it would flow then over the top of the vehicular bridge, even to a depth of 3 feet. And as a result, it would flood homes all along Black Bayou. So we took out those vehicular bridges and put in their place 2 pedestrian bridges, which do not obstruct the flow. And that was part of the solution to fixing the flooding in Black Bayou. The infrastructure investment gap in the United States is estimated to be $2.6 trillion. Asset management. 20, 30 years ago, I would frequently have salesmen call on me selling various asset management products. At that time, I felt like we were doing the things that we needed to do to manage our assets. And it came to my attention that there's more than 400 definitions for asset management. And the one that really hit home with me and best, I guess, exemplified my thoughts is the following definition, which is providing the customer with the services they deserve at the lowest possible cost. Providing the customer with the services they deserve at the lowest possible cost. Now you might say, well, what does this have to do with infrastructure? It has everything to do with infrastructure. You want your bridges to be safe, so the customers don't have to worry when they travel over the bridge. You want your pavement to be smooth and not full of potholes. You don't want your water pipes to be lead. All of this is providing the customer with the services they deserve. And it's your responsibility to try to provide those services at the lowest possible cost. The decline of infrastructure. In my opinion, the biggest reason for the decline of infrastructure is a lack of funding. This is certainly the problem with I-65 between Montgomery and Birmingham. And it was once the problem with City of Memphis flooding issues. And in my opinion, the biggest reason for the lack of funding is politics. Beware of politicians that run on the platform that they will never vote for a rate increase or a tax increase. If they have their way, our infrastructure will surely decay. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to convince a city council person that we needed a fee increase or a rate increase, and that politician, that city council person, was adamant that they would never vote for any kind of a rate increase or any kind of a tax increase. But yet at the same time, at a place like Memphis Light, Gas and Water, employee healthcare costs go up every year, sometimes as much as 8% or more. The employees expect cost of living raises, and city council loves to give employees raises, even though they won't raise fees or taxes. Inflation, whether it's a high rate or a low rate of inflation, is always there. So what you buy continually increases in cost. And with all of these pressures for rising cost, and if you can't get the rates increased or the taxes increased, the outcome is that something's got to give, and that either means reduce the number of employees, which then reduces services, or reduce your investment in infrastructure. The 2021 infrastructure bill that was passed in Washington to the tune of $1 trillion, there were 200 congressmen and senators that voted against it. And yet they take credit for the resulting infrastructure improvements that will be afforded their home state. Pretty amazing. So, lessons learned for engineers. Don't replace infrastructure just because it's old. Some of our best infrastructure is old. When you design and build a project, under promise and overachieve. The toughest part of improving or replacing infrastructure is getting the funding, which means that you have to, as an engineer, effectively sell the need for your project. And it might mean that you would actually have to speak in front of an audience. And for a lot of engineers, that is a fearsome prospect that you would have to speak in front of an audience. And you may have to come up with an innovative way to get funding, such as setting up a fee in lieu of having a property tax increase. The MLGW bills are full of all kinds of fees: stormwater fees, solid waste fees, vector fees to get rid of rats and mosquitoes. There's even a streetlight fee. Now, the streetlight fee, interestingly enough, was not created because of an infrastructure need. It was a fee that was created solely at the initiative of City Council as a backdoor tax increase so that they could raise funds without having to raise taxes. So the cost of maintaining streetlights was removed from the general fund budget, and it was put into the streetlight fee as a separate dedicated source of funding. Again, it's just a backdoor tax increase. In my opinion, your job as an engineer is to provide your customers with the level of service they deserve at the lowest possible cost, and you and your organization should do this every day. Thank you for listening to me this morning, and I'll take whatever questions that you might have.
So any questions out there? Very timely presentation, Jerry. Thank you for that. Any questions from our participants? I see none. On the chat, there was a lot of congratulations to Tim Herndon for his award of excellence. Last call, great presentation, Colonel Ellicott. So Jerry, one question I have, listening to your presentation, it might be, especially considering this last ice storm, it might be that we need to invoke public safety when it comes to going after some of these infrastructure updates. Thoughts?
So as it relates to the ice storm, in my mind, that's really not an infrastructure problem. And the analogy that I would use is that if a 18-wheeler going 70 miles an hour hits a passenger vehicle broadside in an intersection, it doesn't make any difference if that passenger vehicle is 1 year old or 50 years old. It's going to be toast either way. Now, there's certainly some technological improvements that we can make to the electric distribution system to make outages smaller in scope and maybe to give them some self-healing capabilities. Those are improvements that the current administration is asking for. They are improvements that I asked for when I was at MLGW. And typically it's a request that goes unheeded, but a little bit of history was made yesterday when MLGW was called before City Council and made a presentation. And there were actually a couple of City Council members that admitted that maybe it was a little bit their fault that they did not approve of infrastructure or funding requests at MLGW in years past. And would you believe it, at the end of the session, they actually applauded the representatives from MLGW.
Amazing turn of events. They also, as you may, if you listened in, they read the first reading of the ordinance to increase our purchases and contracts to $500,000 without approval,
which is extremely important. And when I was at MLGW, every contract above $50,000 had to go to city council for approval. So that means that in some cases, just the purchase of a large truck has to go to city council for approval, which is a ridiculous level of micromanagement.
Yeah, and which is not seen by other utilities. So there is one question here, a loaded question from Tom Stoll, Jerry, and you have a wealth of experience with this. What is the best way to convince a hostile group of politicians politicians to see things your way?
I think that you have to create a little fear and make sure that they understand the negative consequences. And if they don't approve the funding, then you make it really clear that these negative consequences can become reality, and people will look back and point at them for not making the decisive decisions, for not exercising the leadership necessary to move forward so that those negative consequences won't occur.
So creating accountability. How do we create accountability for these senators and congressmen that didn't vote for the infrastructure bill, that are taking credit for the infrastructure updates happening in their state now?
So I think the accountability comes at the voting booth.
Any other questions for Jerry? Thank you so much, Jerry, for that presentation. Very timely, sir. Real quick, again, want to recognize and all of our featured engineers and featured students. This is the kickoff for the Engineers Week. There are several activities that are ongoing and upcoming, so I want to cover those real quick before we adjourn. First off, the order of the engineering ceremony and ethics presentation will be Tuesday, February 22nd. Check-in at 11, lunch at 11:30. Program will start at 12. It's at the InSafe Training Room. Cost is $37 for inductees, $15 for in-person attendees, $5 for remote. There will be a 1 PDH awarded to all attendees. Box lunches will be provided. This is sponsored by the American Society of Civil Engineers and Society of Military Engineers of Memphis Post. This is in the flyer that was sent out. If you don't have a copy, please reach out to one of your representatives on here. The other thing that is ongoing, MJEC annually does a student contest. We received most of those projects last week. We did give them an extension till today. These are for high school and middle school students. And we've commenced the first round of judging. The second round or championship round will be determined from all those projects. I don't know, Renee, if we have a record, but we did receive a lot more today. So all of you all doing judging now, I appreciate it. You got another batch that will be coming to you. So please, we're also looking for judges for that championship round. It will be a live event on Zoom. So if you have time, we will determine the timing of that based on the school's availability and the judge's availability. But if you'd like to participate, please reach out to me. My contact information is listed here. rgroves@mljw.org is the best way to reach me. Further, there is the webinar and panel session presented by SW Memphis. That's going to be held Thursday, February 24th. And then the topics: the value of diversity, inclusion, and engineering technology. You can contact the Society of Women Engineers, look at their website for information on registering. And then also the annual TFPE Awards and Presentation. We'll also have a 1 PDH. Topic will be the emergency design repairs to the I-40 Hernando de Soto Bridge, which Jerry reviewed a little bit in his presentation. And additional information on registration, online access will be available soon. I will also let everyone know, especially those Ps in the group, that the Engineers Club of Memphis holds weekly meetings on Mondays, and most of those are PDHs. Last year we had 40+ PDHs awarded, and it's only $85 to join. So if you're interested in that, go check out the Engineers Club of Memphis website. And with that, is there any other questions, comments, notifications? Carol, you have anything?
No, Ryan, you covered it all. I appreciate it. And isn't it 75 a year, or has it gone up to 85 for Engineers Club?
I'll have to double check. It's 75 to 85. I can't quite remember. Bob, do you recall?
It's still 75. Since we don't have nearly as much we used to, we haven't raised it.
Yes,
Okay.
and this is a great asset. The club is a great asset, especially for those that are not within Memphis. We don't have live meetings anymore, at least immediate future. So these are all Zoom sessions for the most part. and a great way to get your PH requirements in.
And thank you, Ryan. You covered the Engineers Week activities. You all come on out and participate. A lot of them are virtual. So come on out and enjoy the Engineers Week celebrations.
All right, special thanks to Carol Jones for the awards presentation, Bob Sweeney for our proclamations, and of course, Jerry Collins for the keynote speaker. Thank you all. Y'all have a great rest of the week and stay warm out there. We have another winter storm approaching Memphis tomorrow. Hopefully it will just be rain and wind. Goodbye.